The Night Train, Traveling to Other Dimensions in My Dream Time by Robbi Spencer. I would like to share something with all of you that might seem far-fetched to some, but to many of you this might actually make sense. For the past 5 years, my team and I have been studying quantum physics and quantum mechanics, being fascinated by stories of CERN discovering the Higgs boson, God particle, and men being able to now play God and recreate the Big Bang. I realized that there were some very important things to understanding about electrons and protons. That is, that they react differently depending on whether or not they are being observed. That means that our reality is something that can be manipulated, and it means that many things only come into play when we look at them. Otherwise, they're not even loaded into the matrix. Yes, I said that. We live in a simulated reality. And as hard as that may be to grasp, if you are ever going to advance in life, you have got to get out of the routine, as we call it, and begin to use your own imagination to create the reality that you want. It took a lot of study and research to get to a place where my mind would allow me to believe something so out there and even possibly contrary to my faith, because being a man of God, there are all kinds of laws and so on that keep you in a box, a prisoner as it were. Earth is indeed a prison planet, but not as you may assume if you base everything on what you've seen coming out of Hollywood. Just remember this. Everything in Hollywood is fake, including the people. My first trip on the train was just that, a trip. I don't feel as if I was just letting my overactive imagination go wild. I really felt like I was watching a movie in my head, and I was fully awake with my eyes closed, just laying on my bed. As I laid there, a vision went through my mind of an abandoned warehouse with a chain-link fence around it. As I entered the warehouse, it was mostly dark and very creepy, but I was curious to see how long this vision would last if I didn't interfere with it and just went with it. From the outside, the train appeared to be a diesel locomotive, but stepping inside of it was like stepping through a portal, because the inside was more like a cross between an airplane cockpit and a server room. There were racks of computers and hardware with flashing lights. Upon entering, I was greeted with the hum of a power source that was definitely not a diesel engine. On a conventional diesel locomotive, huge diesel engines drive electric generators that power large DC motors in the wheels, and that is what drives the train. But in this case, there was obviously a much more powerful and futuristic form of power to create what is required for interdimensional travel. The rumble of the power source did sound familiar, though, like a song I have heard before. My first journey on the night train involved a very simple set of instructions that were displayed on an LCD screen in what was obviously the location where the traveler would sit down and relax. Once seated, there was an IV needle that would have to be inserted into the vein in my left arm. Now, as scary as that sounds, because I hate needles, the needle was very short, and it took like 5 seconds to poke it into my arm and then tape it down with the provided medical-grade tape. In addition to the IV, there was also an oxygen sensor that I would clip onto my ring finger, and then I was ready to travel. None of this seemed strange or out of the ordinary to me while I was in this vision mode. I was calm and relaxed and excited to see where it might take me. I have lived through the horrors of having Joe Biden as president, so I felt like nothing could harm me at this point. Plus, I believe that angels are constantly watching over me, so I'm not worried about getting lost or not making it back home. Once I was all hooked up to the machine and I could see my heart rate on the screen and all the lights were green, I selected the only option that was on the screen that read Acclimation Run. When I touched the screen and made my selection, the lights inside the train dimmed even more, and I felt the train proceed slowly. Though the path of the train was mostly obscured by equipment, there was a small window to the right of me, and I could see that the train was definitely moving forward at about 5 miles an hour, moving in what appeared to be a tunnel-shaped structure located in front of the train. The sound of the power source began ramping up as the train entered the tunnel. A blue indigo light emitted from the inside of the tunnel and surrounded the train as it slowed upon entry. The screen in front of me flashed several messages, but the writing was like nothing I'd ever seen, almost alien-like. There was a smell of dielectric grease, and the vibration had reached a maximum tone that once again was familiar in a way. Finally, the train came to a complete stop, and that is where the scene changes, and I now find myself in what looks to be a rainforest or a jungle. The hum and the vibration are now gone, and the absence of this draws my attention to the fact that I have indeed traveled and I am no longer on the train in the abandoned warehouse. By this point, I am no longer in an awakened state, but I am fully asleep, therefore dreaming or traveling as I like to call it, and somewhat in control at this point. During the boarding of the train, at the startup sequence and all that, I was definitely awake, but at some point the vision took me to another dimension, a dimension very much like Earth, but definitely not Earth. It was in the rainforest level that I was able to perceive who I was and where I was. There was no set time for me to return to my world or awake state, because outside of this dimension, time does not even exist. In the rainforest level, I had the opportunity to interact with beings that looked human, but no one communicated audibly, and everyone was telepathic, even me. The group of young men that I met said that I should join their club, and I thought that was really cool that there were actual clubs that people could join to perform a certain service or duty. The beings that I met were all committed to service of humanity. They told me many things about our world, our society, and about our future events that would take place and change our fundamental reality as we know it. It was amazing and fascinating, and I needed to know more. I rode the train for a full year, and I learned a lot of things that allowed me to change my situation in life and even see my own reality change right before my very eyes. The train was dark and somewhat scary, but the thought of being able to explore other dimensions far outweighed that, and I felt it was time to chronicle my journeys so that others could partake in my time beyond the veil. I don't take any of this lightly or believe for a minute that it was just a work of my overactive imagination. My imagination could never take me places that I have been to unless it was for my Creator and God, who introduced me to the train as a viable construct in which to cross the veil and come back home. To hear my complete story, be sure to get a copy of The Night Train, available soon on Lost Sheep Publishing. God bless.